Hey, Jeff Howard here at Kiteboarding.com and Wingboarding.com. We get a lot of questions about wingboarding foils. Now, what foils should I get? Should I have a high aspect? Should I have a low aspect? What's the difference? Well, I spend a lot of time riding them. When I go out and I test a foil, I try to put it through its paces, meaning I like to take it as fast as I can get it to ride. I take it as slow as I can get it to ride. I see how it recovers in a turn, if it wants to drop its nose or how it wants to ride out. These are the kind of parameters when I'm out there riding and testing a foil and I want to give that perspective to the buyer. I spend a lot of time doing these things. It's not just get up, go ride, and then stop and then put it away. I spend time on them so I can give you the perspective. Now, what I want to talk about is the difference of some of the foil shaping and what you might need in your wingboarding setup. Now, what I have here is I have this is the Norse sonar setup, and they have a high aspect and they have their standard sonar low aspect. Then you've got the Nash. This is their HA, the jet. This is a high aspect, and then they have the low aspect. Now, what I want to talk to you about is it's not just the aspect of a wing that makes it a beginner or an all-around or everything. There's also a lot of other shaping in there. A lot of people don't understand, and I'm going to see if I can do that. Now, one of them is a profile. So a profile, you can see that profile of the shaping of the wing, not just its width and its chord, but also that profile. This is the Nash, and this one tells me by looking at it with that very arced up high profile, this one's going to foil at a very slow speed and it's going to have a lot of lift to it. So if we're mounting this on a very large board, someone's getting into the sport, you're learning, or you want to get out there in the lowest of winds and get that pop and get that lift, get that board released from that water, you're in a very low end situation, this is going to be a benefit for you. Now, remember, a higher profile like this also makes it a slower speeding foil. It'll only reach a certain speed before it starts to want to back up when you're trying to push it. That's why you'll get that nose dip down in there. So that is the difference of the profile. So if you look at a sonar and their lower aspect, it's got a lower profile to it. So that means between these two, this one will probably lift a little bit later at a little bit higher speed than that Nash one would. It's got a little lower profile. But what that also does is it gives you a larger range on this wing. So this is a really, really fun wing. I spent a lot of time on this one here and testing its range, and it has a huge range. I could get this thing to move a lot faster through the water, but it did take a little bit more to get it up. It also has a really good turn to it. Both of these, between the jet and the sonar, it's really difficult. The sonar had a little bit more range to it, but this one popped out of the water a little bit sooner. So those are the little main difference about profiles. Now, profiles also start to change when you get down to the high aspect. High aspect wings, like this is the Sonar 1250, this is their high aspect wing. This one, as you can see, there's very little profile to it. That means this thing is going to go at a lot more speed to it, but it's also going to take more power, more speed to get going and get flying. Once you're flying, this one's wanting to take off. What's the benefit or the downside of high aspect? Many high aspect wings, as they get wider, they get harder to turn. So if you get a high aspect wing, yes, that thing is going to glide like you wouldn't believe. It wants to keep its speed going. Like a high performance glider, you're going to see them with wide spans to them, and they're going to float a lot longer. Downside is I haven't been on one that has a turn speed that has all these average. So you go in between, it just doesn't want to turn as much. So if I'm gliding on a wave and I want to turn back quickly, it doesn't turn as fast. Now, other things can make that change too. You can have a smaller wing, a shorter fuselage, but overall, when they're higher aspect, just bringing them around and the tip popping out of the water and cavitating sometimes can be a downside, but they glide like you wouldn't believe. Your speed increases. I was able to slowly get used to it. When I bottom turned it, it sometimes is difficult because it just dropped my nose of the board a little bit and I had to put a lot more back foot pressure than I thought. Downside, I don't think it's a downside. I think it's just a person getting used to what you're going to do when you jump into high aspect wings. Now, the other one is the Jet. This is the Jet 1400, their high aspect. Not quite as high aspect as the 1250, and I have pulled out their 1250 as well. They have a little bit wider cord to it, but it has more profile. So that more profile, this one I found is a great all-around average everything feel. So I wanted to bottom turned it, it kept its wingtips up. It wanted to come in and run at a really good speed, not quite as fast as a 1250, but it had a faster speed than your low aspect ones. But it's a really nice all-around foil, the way it wants to fly, how it gets started at a little bit slower speed than the 1250 or their higher aspect. And I know the sizes can change for sure, but it has a little bit more profile to it, so it was a good all-around average speed. Now, what's right for you? It all depends on your weight, it all depends on your board, and it depends on your conditions. I have averaged down, I have gone as fast as I could go, all the way down to 1,000 centimeter foil, and it runs fast. It takes a lot of power to get up on, but it outruns some of the waves, and I didn't like that. I had to continuously keep cutting to stay in that wave swell. Here in Corpus, we get a lot of wave swell. I hear wind swell, what we call it, and I like an average wing, not as high and as fast as I can go, because I want to sit there and do my, a good decent turn and stay in that wind swell. So high aspect, low aspect, what size do you need? Don't hesitate to give us a call, because we spend the time on these things to help you, the customer, to make sure that we pick the right one. The great thing about these setups between the Nash and the North is they're all change out. So if I get you set up and you're starting to learn and you're using a Jet for a low wind and learning, you can easily just call, get the high aspect wing, get the right one, unbolt it, bolt it on, and you're ready to go. So the whole thing is interchangeable, both of them. You can do it on the North and you can do it on the Nash. Great setups. There's a lot of them out there that are doing this too. I hope that this high and low aspect thing will help you out in picking your size, or high and low aspect. But when it comes down to size, give us a call. That all determines on where you're riding, how much you weigh, what board you're going to be on, and the conditions that you're riding in. Anyway, that's Jeff Howard here at Wingboarding.com and Kiteboarding.com. Show you a little bit about the foils and keep you on the water.